today, about to have a great conversation with our friend Aliza Olson. But first, real quick, our sponsor, Young You Organics, and this white sage smudge spray uh, is, like I said before, it's an amazing smudge spray that you can spray on anything. You spray it on yourself, use it like a perfume, you can use it before you go to bed to enhance your dreams. And there's many uses for it, and it's something that we both use and highly recommend. And I know Melissa says that she likes to spray it on her kids.
Yeah, my kids love
Power
it.
of Christ compels. Shh, shh, shh.
We spray it to start our little sanctuary Sunday. I spray it before my kids go to bed. And as last week or what last time we recorded, when I actually realized that it's for clearing energy, so I've been spraying it right now. And every time I spray it, I ask for, my fear and my doubt and my worries and whatever else I need to let go to just be gone. It's like, I should use this as it's intended. Maybe it'll work that way.
Yeah, the energy that goes into making this and really the properties of the plants are cleansing. And really, that's exactly what they're used for.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's a great way to just cleanse the space, add something pleasant to the space. And like you said, be able to cleanse out, what's no longer serving you.
Yes, we also use it as we forgot to do the laundry spray when my when my kids put on their jerseys for sports. Luckily,
Yeah,
they're
and
young, so they're not too stinky yet. I don't know if it would work on stinky socks.
probably not. And if
Probably
you're
not.
Yeah, and if you're into shamanism, it's a good way of practicing invocations of, all of the medicine spirits that are involved in the creation of this smudge spray. So, with that being said, Eliza, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Aliza Olson, and I am a teacher and a coach and a spiritual leader for people who are interested in that. I come from the Jewish tradition, but I have studied global religion and I try to integrate lots of different practices, whatever is meaningful for people. I officiate weddings and do other life events with people, and I help to create ceremonies that are specifically intentionally meaningful for whomever I'm creating it for. And I get to work with little kids and older kids and adults. I'm also a Reiki practitioner, and I've been doing that for over 25 years. And I've studied a lot of other body work techniques. And I've gotten to teach some of those, and it's been really, really wonderful. And I'm always looking to build community, which is how I got to know you guys in Peru. I had the incredible opportunity to go to Peru 3 times this past year to study plant medicine and shamanism in the jungles of the northern Peru near Iquitos. And it has just been extraordinary. I'm so grateful to have met you guys. You're truly phenomenal individuals. I love your podcast, and I'm so excited to be here.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm very grateful to have got the pleasure to get to know you and to spend some time with you in Peru, really learning about different types of plant medicines in the
Mhm.
Amazon. It's quite an experience. It was a lot of fun.
It really is. It's truly immersive. The jungle is so alive. Studying it there is completely different than studying shamanism or plant medicine or history or any of those things or the animals or any of that anywhere else in the world. To me, being in that jungle was really powerful. It gets louder at night. It gets louder when you're intending things and in ceremony, and the it just feels so alive and beautifully energetic and supportive. It was a really incredible place to do this work. Mhm.
I really agree. And I just want to thank you, Aliza, for bringing your energy here with us today. could really feel your enthusiasm and your joy and your passion and your just I want to say bubbly, but
Thanks.
I feel like that's kind of, I don't know.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it's just so effervescent is more like it. Like it's just so,
Thank you.
yeah. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really curious. So we met it was about February, so almost a year
Mhm.
ago.
I know, it's been amazing.
Yeah, and I think that was your your start to to your
Hmm.
journey. So I'm so
Hmm.
curious as to what has come from that. What has changed? What have you been integrating?
Yeah, it has been a powerful and challenging
Mm.
experience. I really feel like the greatest thing I've taken away are the friendships and the people that I've met and the connections I've made. And what I've gotten to learn from the other people who are there is really phenomenal. I had some interactions with people that were somewhat challenging and brought things up in me in some big ways that made it it's sort of challenging that in ways I wasn't necessarily expecting, but gave me an opportunity to take some deep looks inside myself and really learn and grow. And I'm so grateful for these opportunities. But really, the people I've met have been so extraordinary and so inspiring. And getting to be with the
Mm.
animals, oh my goodness, if you ever have a chance to go, there is a sanctuary with a little baby sloth named Jose that will just hug you all day. He's so sweet. There was a rainstorm the first time I went with Jorge, the most incredible guide, and there was this little hut, and we sat in the little hut with this baby sloth snuggling me while the rainstorm passed. And I was hearing stories, local stories, and I'm snuggling a sloth, and I'm looking around at this rain, and I'm dry, and I'm thinking, this is incredible. This is the most quintessential Peruvian jungle experience. And I just had a picture of me and Jose on my phone for like most of this year. I just officiated a wedding in Kauai, so I changed my picture to something from that. But I do miss Jose. He was pretty amazing.
Oh, that's really so sweet.
Yeah, that's an amazing experience that you got
Yeah.
to have with a sloth. You
Um,
said a baby sloth too.
Baby sloth. And then on the second trip, I went back and I got to snuggle him again. And I like to think he remembered me. I remembered him. It was really amazing. So
Oh shit, it's Aliza.
I know. It's like when we went to the manatee sanctuary and they were like, "You've been here." I was like, "Yeah." That felt so nice. They were so lovely. They're like,
Hmm.
"We remember." I was like, "Oh my gosh."
I'm
So
sure
it's
you
very
leave a
friendly.
mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, you must leave a mark everywhere you go.
Thank you. So it's been an incredible experience, and I'm so grateful to have gone through it with you guys. What have you learned from those experiences?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Melissa.
Like,
Oh, what have I learned from this
remember
year?
that February trip? That was some deep
Yeah.
work. We were really thinking
Oh,
deep,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That
right?
was like so deep for me. I remember feeling like I am just fucking healed after that
Mm.
trip. I was like, I am
Wow.
done. And I think, yeah, I've really had to kind of move forward from that place of being
Yeah.
like, no, fucking A, I'm done. Yeah, of course, there
Hmm.
are some things I still have to look at and some things I still have to reckon with and some things that, need to be addressed and
It's an ongoing
recognized.
process
Yeah, I
always,
mean, I
you know.
don't think it ever ends, right? All of the little bits and moments that we forget really leave a lasting impression
Mhm.
for whatever reason we were created that way.
But you can make a leap. You can also make a leap. You can move
Oh,
significantly forward, even though it's a process, it's not linear. And so something like this can really help move things forward significantly, which sounds like that's what happened for you.
um, Yeah, I think so. I think I really had to stop. Right, just stop moving from one way and start moving from another way and
Mm,
really take responsibility for where I'm moving from, and also knowing that I can get to that
yeah.
place, and also focusing more on what that is. Like,
Hmm.
something big that came to me is I'm a solution.
Wow, what does that mean for you?
Well, I haven't quite figured it all out yet, but it even came with like a little like melody. I'm a solution, and like I really get to live into whatever that looks like. Right,
I
like
love
the
that.
mission, the vision,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
focus more on that rather than the I am the and not that there's anything wrong with that. There's definitely a time and a
There's a time.
place,
Mhm.
and I think that all does need to be
Validated.
validated, loved, have
Hmm.
patience for that place and those places,
Hmm.
because I think that's super important.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that's what I've kind of been working on. It's just
I
moving
love it.
forward with like
It's
a,
so powerful to like take that
yeah,
shift of saying, I have sat with this, I have worked on this, I have done my healing, and I'm ready to start a new chapter. And like taking that on and taking that responsibility of creating something new is huge. It's phenomenal. It's exciting. It's thrilling. It's terrifying, but it's amazing.
yeah,
I'm really excited for you.
yeah, me too. Me too. Thanks.
Mhm.
How about you, Nick?
Well, for me, it was about close to a 10-year journey leading up to going to Peru this year. I remember in around like 2013 or so, I started to hear about shamanism and people who practice these plant medicine practices in Peru.
Mhm.
And it just really resonated inside of me. And it was something
Mhm.
that I ultimately knew that I would participate in. And and at that time, I started to use cannabis intentionally, um, really for the sake of learning from the plant itself. And I remember I had just this like really, really deep mystical experience with the plant itself, where I just had this complete out of body experience where I went to this like nebulous, gaseous pastel realm of beautiful colors. And then this white light opened up and I started moving to the white light. And then I got really scared. And then I got a mess. I got like this, I don't know, it was like communication of like, would you like to go through the white light? And I just said no. And I was then put back in my body. And then I really started to like realize just how truly beautiful life is. And then as sort of time went on, I started to really not use cannabis the way that would be considered a medicine, is to deal with life and just sort of like the mm, my dis like just being displeased with my own life and hatred for myself. And I watched a documentary about ayahuasca, which was about Maestro Hamilton Center, and I heard about online streaming cannabis ceremonies where I participated in that, and I started to really participate more in the Blue Morpho online ceremonies, and I essentially like uh, just was really determined and really wanted to learn about shamanism. And Maestro Hamilton guided me to a course that was called Modern Shamanism, which was really, really in depth. Um, it was just a really, really, really in depth course that if you did it every day, it would take you probably close to like a year and a quarter or so. And that's doing it every single day. So I completed all of that and I started to do dieta when there was this thing called white morpho in which they were doing. And I asked about like what are the protocols for a dieta, and I did one dieta which was with white rose, and I remember receiving this vision of just like this rose just like emanating from my heart and like these ripples of like a heartbeat that just extended to the whole universe.
Mm.
And it was just like an inner knowing that um, there was really no separation between like my love and the love of the universe itself. And yeah, then during COVID, I did all of the Trinity dietas except for like one. So I was doing a lot of dieting then, and work with the plant medicines. And I mean, ever since I started modern shamanism, I've been doing work in different types of drumming trances and learning really how to use cannabis respectfully and in accordance with medicine, and um, redefining my relationship with it, not to be so misusing it. And so, yeah, all of that really led me to Peru, and just like my interest in ayahuasca and just this deep knowing that it could provide healing for me. And when I went to Peru to partake in these plant medicines, I did a dieta with the Ramo Caspi tree, and really the plant medicines that um, are in Peru just provided this experience for me to be able to let go of these negative patterns and habits that I have created, so that really in the presence of divinity, I was able to transform uh, in a positive way. So that, yeah, that's the long story of what led me to Peru.
Amazing. Melissa, have you ever done dieta?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, did you do a dieta at the
I
lodge?
did.
Oh,
I
great.
did. Were
What
we
did
doing
you
dieta at the same time when we were both there? Were you doing dieta?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah, that was a fascinating
Ooh.
and intense experience. It was new for me to do that. And you eat very little, very, very simply. It's just like a piece of chicken or a piece of fish, white rice, and a plantain. For breakfast, it was like an egg, rice, and plantain. And that was it. It was just breakfast and lunch, no dinner. It was very little food, no salt, and no seasonings. No, it's very, very simple. So that your focus is on this tea, which is made from the bark of different medicinal trees. And you drink it, and then it integrates into your body and you learn from it. And a lot of the learning happens in dreams. And that was the part that I was most interested in. Like, does it really affect your dreams? Do you really learn from them? It's like a nice idea, but like for real, what's in it? And I was so impressed with how I was affected in my dreams. I was
Mm.
not expecting it. So also in dieta, there's this idea that you are holding back from other things, other impulses. And the idea is you're creating this purity of channel, right? Of learning. You're not distracted by eating other food or thinking about sex or thinking about all of these acquiring things, that like also feed all those dopamine circuits, right? So it's like kind of a dopamine purge in that way too, It's like no screens, no sex, don't even think about it, and those things would come up in the dreams. And
Mm.
I had a dream one night that was so vivid that I was at this huge buffet and I was like filling up my plate, and I had this huge plate of food and I was like, wow. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I'm on dieta. I can't eat this. So even in my dream, I had that awareness, and I put the plate of food down and I walked away in the dream. It was like so amazing. And I was like, that's interesting. And in the morning, I would really remember my dreams. And the people at the retreat center were in my dreams also, And so it was like, it was this interactive experience. Like we were co-creating this deeper consciousness, even in the dream state through this dieta process. And I was really impressed that there was that big of an effect, because these are not psychoactive plants. These are just, medicinal plants in other ways that clearly are communicating. Like they really had messages. There felt like real interactions. And I was surprised and impressed.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Hmm.
Are you able to communicate with the trees now?
I always have. I've always been really in communion with trees and often animals, and I've been so blessed to have incredible experiences with a lot of wild animals and just really feeling like I'm singing with the forest. And that's an incredible thing that I feel so lucky about living in the Pacific Northwest. I'm really in the forest,
Mhm.
and these are such kind and generous and welcoming trees. The Douglas fir is just pretty fantastic. I mean, you got big old oaks and maples, and they're just really wonderful trees.
How have the trees been? I mean, the trees that you dieted specifically,
Mhm.
how have you been integrating all of that? And, what has the benefits been that you have seen since you have dieted the trees?
That's a really interesting question. I felt like I was really impressed by the experience, but once I left, that communication specifically did not continue. I felt really open and in communication with my local trees when I went into the forest, but I didn't feel like I maintained that specific, deep, intentional connection with the Peruvian trees. And maybe I just wasn't with it for long enough. Maybe I didn't have an after integration process that allowed me to maintain that. But I felt like it was really a pocket experience, it was this
Mm.
beautiful little bubble that I can learn from, but I didn't feel like I could clearly communicate with the that those medicinal plants in the same way after. So I would be interested in continuing that connection and seeing if I could deepen it and continue it in a bigger way.
Yeah, you certainly can because once you diet them, they're there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just about having the intention to
Mm-hmm.
connect and to continue the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's certainly possible.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities to continue learning in so many different ways.
How many days did you do?
I did 5,
5?
so yeah. Um, and I also ended somewhat abruptly and transitioned to a completely different process. I flew to New York. So it was one jungle to another, but it kind of it shifted the mental space a little bit.
Mm,
And but as I've been reflecting on it, I feel like there's been a lot of deep learning. And I don't know if it's specifically from the voices of those healing plants or if it's sort of a greater general awareness, sort of integrating larger consciousness as you connect with these different spaces and energies and ways of thinking and ways of being, that those kind of open doorways to see what it's like to be in that way. And so I feel like I've been able to integrate more of that than like the specific teaching connection, more of
yeah.
ways of being.
I've been thinking of it that way myself. I, like Nick, have also I did a lot of the online, the Trinity dietas,
Mm-hmm.
as well as quite, well, at this point this year, I ended up doing a lot of dietas with the trees. And in the past, I had done a few as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had the experience with it, and something my almost my whole entire shamanic career I've struggled with is the communication. But I've been thinking about it more so in the way that you were just kind of referring to it as, these beings, the spirit, really, how do you distinguish yours from theirs,
Mm-hmm.
right? They become integrated into you. And who's to say that, they're not, right, like broadening my awareness
Yeah.
or changing my consciousness or
Mm-hmm.
helping me to
Mm-hmm.
understand something in just like a slight
Yeah.
way that I would maybe not have before, or just said a different word in a
Mhm.
communication that I might not have said before. It doesn't have to be this like this, oh, I know that this thing is doing this like it doesn't have to be this control of the knowing that
Mhm.
it's happening in this way and this is my intention. It's just like, no, this is the intention. They're here, and just trusting that like within the space that I'm in, within the time that I'm in, like
Mhm.
their movement is like becoming part of my movement.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. Which is just recognizing yourself as part of the oneness. It's reconnecting
Mm,
with your greater whole, right? It's the many facets of the one gem, the one
mm,
consciousness that we're all many facets. And it's, integrating and expanding that sparkly experience of awareness.
yeah.
And
So
it's so
brilliant.
cool. It's so fun. I did have an interaction with a tree right before I went on the third trip to Peru. And I would take time to meditate. There were these little trees that had just been planted, and I would, on my walks around the neighborhood, I would stop and say hello to a couple of trees and just, give them a little love and receive a little love and just breathe with them. And it was just a lovely practice. And one night I was walking and I said hello to a new tree, and I hadn't really looked at it. There were just a few in a row, and most of them were maples. And I put my hands on this tree and I was like, hello, who are you? And just, oh, it's so nice to meet you. And I said, I'm an oak tree. And I said, no, you're not. And I gave an image of this like huge old oak tree. I said, this is an oak tree. You're not an oak tree. You're a maple. And he goes, no, I'm an oak tree. And I was like, what? I opened my eyes and it was an oak tree. And I was like so embarrassed. I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I doubted you. Just all the others along here are maples. You're the one oak tree. I assumed you were an oak tree. It, I mean, I assumed you were a maple. I assumed you were a maple, but you're an oak tree. And it was just this very sweet interaction of reminding me to really listen and not make assumptions.
Mm.
And that the tree told me the truth. The tree told me what it was. I said, oh, I'm an oak. And I was like, and I'm like, why am I arguing with a tree? It knows what it is. And I felt so bad. It was like, oh, you can be this beautiful little oak tree. The big old oak tree is not your only option. Like you're totally an oak tree. So like those little moments are the kinds of communication that I'm always learning from. And it helps me like check my assumptions and things like that.
Yeah, that's such a good thing to remember, right? To just really listen. And we don't know everything. I know hardly anything compared to like the
Right?
realm of possibility of all things that there is to be known. How much do we know? Like squat?
It's amazing. There's so much to learn, which is so exciting.
Yeah, when
If
it
I
comes
thought I had
to,
any of it figured out, I'd be bored. I'm so excited. There's always more.
I like what you said too about, releasing assumptions. And I was going to say that when it comes to communicating with these energies, I find the most helpful thing is releasing expectation around how that communication is going to go. Because for me, oftentimes the expectation that I have it doesn't really ever meet that expectation. And I remember struggling for years, like, why am I not communicating with what is wrong with me? Yada yada yada. And to realize that, these life force energies were communicating with me in a way that was based just on inner knowing and intuition when I was looking for it in the form of thought and
Hmm.
words. And with the plant medicine spirits and especially the trees, you know, when I go to communicate with them and all the ones that I've dieted, it doesn't really ever come through in the form of words. It comes through for me in the form of inner knowing, visualization, and oftentimes to smell. And I think the important thing is to work on opening all the channels of communication with it, all of your, visual channels, which isn't just the eyesight, but includes all of your visual channels of, this visionary reality of like senses of touch and including sight and hearing and inner knowing, imagination. There's so many. There's so many. And then what I really love about the plant medicines is that, you invite them into your body and they start helping you open those channels, and to be able to clear out those assumptions and clear out, all of these things that really don't serve your highest self. And so with it, you're able to change in a way that is just better.
I think it's a really exciting opportunity to explore yourself in new ways, to access different parts of yourself, and to do it in community, I think is really powerful. And I think it's really fun to get to meet people from all over the world. And one evening at the lodge, we're sitting around and I realized I was sitting next to an Italian, a Russian, an Australian, and I'm American. And I was like, oh, that's fun. And we were all just really honestly sharing our experiences and what was coming up for us, and just really holding sacred space for each other, which is something that you can do in a different way than maybe you can with people in the public sphere in everyday life. Although I think we strive to bring that with us, but to really learn how to hold that sacred space, it's so powerful to learn to do that in community with people who are so intentional about it also, and who are striving for those same goals. And together you can feel it out together, and how to broaden that space, how to deepen the work. And I think that that's so powerful that I can take that with me and create it in other places, that I can create that sacred space for others. I can hold that space and allow all of us to grow within it, and to allow whatever comes up to come up safely.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely one of the most important things I feel like I've learned and been able to cultivate as well, just to really be so receptive, and to be able to really build those qualities that help to create that sacred space, right? Like the ability to be receptive and to just listen in a way without the expectation, or without the need to like fix anything or to solve anything, but just to be there to be that person that listens and receives it. Because I think that really is very healing in relationship. That's something I think that as humans we do need to, I don't know, for whatever reason. I guess I've heard it said like we've, that these things that we need other people to hold were like created with other people, so they need to be kind of, I don't want to say fixed or solved, but transmuted with someone else.
Yeah, Bonnie Badenoch does an amazing job of talking about co-regulation, that we evolved as a communal species. We thrive in community, we thrive together. None of us is supposed to be doing this alone. That's not how our species evolved as, this strong community. It was because we were able to work together that we could build and create society and create culture. And we actually physically, our nervous systems co-regulate with each other, because we were so sensitive to rejection and to shame, because we needed to be, because we relied on the community. If you got kicked out of the community, there's, no Fred Meyer's, there's no Safeway, there's no like grocery store down the street. Like, there's another tribe that's gonna eat you or kill you, or I don't know.
Yeah, or some
Extreme
animal.
examples, but
no,
right,
it's true though.
Animal,
it was
there's
going to
an
be like you're
anaconda
going to
out
be eaten
there.
by a snake.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There were real threats to your life that luckily in our society today are not the same. You can get resources, you can change communities, but that inner sense of rejection and fear of rejection and response to shame hasn't changed.
Yeah.
So now things that are not life-threatening still feel life-threatening often. And in order for us to get beyond that, there's so much that can cause anxiety in our, it always feels like there's a tiger, right? So how do we know that we're safe? If you're with someone else who's like, it's safe, you go, oh, okay, I'm safe too.
Yeah.
And so we really co-regulate with each other. And that's something I think we've undervalued. Like, we're all looking to do it on our own, which is really important also, but to recognize that we're not actually wired that way. We have been wired to respond to other people. so that we can create these harmonious communities.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I was actually thinking about that earlier too, right? Like it is so essential too for a newborn to be with someone
Exactly.
that is regulated in order
Yes.
for them to learn what that regulation feels like in their own body,
Yes. It's
because they
essential. We
can't do
see it
that for
there. Yeah.
themselves at that point in time.
Hmm.
I find it
And
fascinating how the medicinal plants, they really foster and support those inner community relationships and really community building and just getting along with each other.
Yeah, well,
right.
I think that's oh, go on.
I think it helps us to see, right, like the internal family systems where you have different parts of yourself. It helps you to see those different parts of yourself, to recognize them, to value them, not to shush them and push them down, and ones that are not as beautiful as you'd like them to be or as perfect as they should be, like those real raw parts of ourselves, to give them voice within ourselves. We learn to create space for all the parts of ourself. And I think it helps with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that goes back to one of those qualities, right, that we learn to develop. And that way, that is part of what makes us, right, safe to sit with other people and really like a fertile ground to create that
Yes.
community
Yeah.
that that I think that we all really value and are craving. I mean,
Yes.
everyone wants to be listened to. I think a lot of people like exploring what is actually beyond all these conditions that have been put on me, because there's a lot more to figure out and find out and to be than just, what we've been handed.
I know, I think that's really true. Everyone wants a loving community. Everyone wants to be around people who are
Mm.
supporting them and are looking out for their own well-being. And then vice versa, of that individual, really supporting the community's well-being and looking
Hmm.
out for the community's well-being.
Hmm. Yeah, it has to be reciprocal. They say, you give what you can and you take what you need. It's
Mm,
the kibbutz philosophy, that if everybody shows up and gives what they can and just takes what they need, there'll be enough for everybody. And we'll have a
yeah.
strong community. And that won't look the same for everyone. And it won't look the same for you over time.
Yeah, yeah, I love that idea. Like just giving and receiving. Just,
Hmm.
I mean, I think that's the natural order of things.
Yeah. Right. I don't think we always have a way to do that safely in society, like in the workplace. Like it's, hard to sometimes create those relationships and, with people that are just acquaintances, or you see someone regularly, but you don't have that depth of connection where you can really share something vulnerable and they feel really safe. And, so those people are really precious and those spaces are really special.
Yeah, I really agree. That's something you said at the beginning, that, the work brought you to find those relationships
Hmm.
and friendships. And
Hmm.
I felt the exact same way. I mean, some of my closest and dearest friends now have been those that I've met through all of this work.
Same here.
Yeah. And I think that's really important because we support each other in this work and in this process, which isn't always, again, it's like it's not linear. It's not always easy. It's sometimes it gets to be rainbows and wonderful butterflies. And sometimes, you're really in the mud and that's the fertilizer. That's what you were saying. That's the fertile soil that we're creating that grows those roses, that get to unfold in incredible, unique, beautiful ways that are these wonderful souls here. And so it's a real gift to fertilize the soil to create that. Mm.
Yeah, it really is a gift. That's something I've been learning too, where you kind of just touched on that, the fertilizer, even though it smells like shit, it's like
Mhm.
it's a necessary component, and we can't really have one without the other, and we shouldn't really be judging one as good and one as bad. I mean, it all is just this
Yeah.
stuff that's infused with the spirit, you know?
It's part of the full experience. It's part of being human, having the privilege of feeling separation. Because I think this
Mm,
is probably the only place we can feel it. I think this is the
mm,
only place that I'm in a unique body that I can feel separate from the people around me. And
mm.
so that experience and that challenge is really a privilege.
I never thought of it that way. I love that perspective, like a privilege to feel the separation.
So that I can strive to overcome it. If I never feel separate, then I never have to grow into it.
That kind of reminds me of that teaching about, or some people, I don't know who they are, but off the top of my head, but they talk about how in order, we have to develop our ego in order to then kind of let it go. But somehow I think in there's like a misdefinition of the ego as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, because I was thinking about it's interesting how we do have to, we are born with this understand or I don't know, understanding, right? I don't know, think that we are actually understanding anything, but with this perception that we are not separate from anything, and we actually do have to learn that we are separate, right? We have to learn that I'm not all that there is, that I have like this skin.
Mm-hmm.
And we really have to develop like the sense of having our own skin in order to be, I don't know if protected is the word. In a way, yes.
To be fully ourselves also.
Yeah.
You have to figure out, who am I as the unique expression of the universe?
Mm.
I'm the
I think it
very
is a
first
protection.
time. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. I was just going to say it's the very first time that the universe has experienced itself in this way through me.
I think
And
it is a
so,
protection too.
yeah,
Like if you couldn't distinguish between your body, yourself, and the river, and you just went into the river, you would drown.
that's very true.
So I think in a way it does serve as a protection. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was gonna say how in my experience with the spiritual practices, it's, learning how to hold both of the individual state, like, yep, you're your body, you're that individual node of consciousness, but you're also, among the collective in this collective consciousness. And
Mhm.
so, it's just kind of,
Yeah.
really holding both of those states of like, yes, you are everything, but you are also an individual.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think from biology, that's true. That we have to the cell has to know like what's it and what's not it to know like
Mhm.
what to let in and what to keep out.
Mhm.
And we
Yeah.
are just an extension of
Mhm.
the intelligence of all those cells.
Mhm.
I'm curious to know, Aliza, how did you get into the spirituality to begin with, right? You were mentioning before we started recording that and when we had met in February, you were, I think, contemplating perhaps becoming a rabbi, which I know since then you've decided to not pursue that title or that, I don't know if that's the right word. I'm sure it's more than just a title. That,
I'm not going to do the formal program right
yeah.
now. Yeah, but it's still the work. A lot of the work that I do. I do a lot of that work, community support, religious ritual, spirituality, for people who are not necessarily affiliated with a formal community. And so my not being affiliated with a formal community is sometimes an asset,
Mm,
because it really welcomes people in. And I do a lot of um, people who are couples from different backgrounds, mixed marriages, who are saying, well, how can we raise our kids? How can we take what's important to both of us and create something meaningful for our kids? And so a lot of conversations like that.
yeah. How did you get into that?
That is such a great question. It's always been a part of my life. I have had very strong intuition since I was very young that really drew me into a lot of curiosity about spirituality. And I would read everything I could get a hold of just to learn about what other people's perspectives and experiences were. I was raised in the Jewish community fairly religiously. And so spirituality was a regular part of my practice, my daily life, prayer before eating, acknowledgement every day of the value of wake up and you say, thank you, I exist. I'm so grateful for another day. And what you say is you say, thank you, God, for having faith in me. Every morning you say, good morning, thank you, God, for giving me this day. Thank you for having faith in me. And so that's these beautiful practices that I was raised with. And then I was just so curious about what other traditional experiences were. When I was 18, I moved to Israel for a year and I was a student and a volunteer. I was a volunteer teacher and I lived on a kibbutz. And the host family I was with, divine providence, so incredible. I just happened to be paired up with this family where the mom is a doctor, an MD from Argentina, who had moved to Israel and become a Reiki practitioner and started a practice on the kibbutz. And people still do come from all over Israel, all over the world to come and see her and work with her. And after not more than 2 weeks of my being there, she was like, I have to teach you. I just feel this call. I have to teach you. I don't know if you're interested. And I was like, oh, I was so excited. I was so excited. And my first time receiving Reiki just really opened my inner vision in a very powerful way. And since then, I have been studying. I studied with her for that year I was there. I've continued working with her since. Then when I came back and I went to college, I did the formal Reiki training up through the master level and became a teacher. And then just really tried to learn from all the teachers that I could. And every time I travel, I try to learn from indigenous people who hold their wisdom, who hold ancient wisdom. And so I'm trying to collect stories and ancient wisdom and to see where things are parallel, right? Where are we using different language to describe the same experiences, the same spiritual truths? And so that's really been part of my quest and curiosity, is to find these commonalities throughout these ancient traditions and how they're practiced today and how they match up with modern neuroscience and physiology and biology that we now understand in a different way. And where are those interactions and parallels? And so how can we use all of this to make our lives better? That's the real functional application, is what have we figured out as humans that can make this challenging experience a little easier, a little more beautiful, a little more fun?
What have you found that the parallels are and how to use them to benefit your life?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think that some of the main things that I've learned is that people connect through their own traditions, and that what you're raised with informs the most comfortable way, often, not always. Sometimes people find it in other places, but often what you're raised with is your most comfortable way to connect. And so it's not that anything is often fundamentally different, but it's that there are like different avenues in. And so where someone might use breath work and someone might use plant medicine and someone is using meditation, all of those are about attuning consciousness and regulating your nervous system. Those are really the two goals of all practices that I've understood, that it's really all about regulating your nervous system so that you can create space between reaction and response, right? That you're not just reacting, something comes in and you have space before you respond. That's where free will resides. And so all of these practices are about creating that space so you have a choice. So if you don't have that space, you're just reacting, you don't have a choice, you don't have free will. Whoever can trigger you owns you, right? That's what everyone says. And so all of these are practices to regulate that nervous system, to create enough calm so you have that free will, that space of choice. That's what I feel is the greatest commonality. And then from there, it's about expanding consciousness, right? Once you've got that space of calm where you can receive and you can listen, you can choose, is that from there you can also access that information that you might get from divinity in different ways, right? From the complete oneness, that bigger sense of self in different ways, right? Meditation, breathing, yoga, plant medicine, those are your ways in, but that it's all about that same goal.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've really been thinking about that too, like how that pause, which I think all those practices give you, right? It gives you the time to be still and to, just take a minute, just take a moment. Yeah, I've been thinking about the pause a lot recently.
The state of not reacting to what's going on around you.
Yeah.
That's a practice in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a huge one in so many traditions, right? That like that's the goal, I think, much of the time in yoga or in breath work or in meditation is that calm space that you get to and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm not like, I got it, I got it, I got it, I got it. No, just where the magic happens.
I totally agree. I know in my head I was saying like that's where the juice is.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me of a meditation I was just doing where, so I do, I forget if it's like, I think it's called like the centering prayer or contemplative prayer. I forget like the actual name of it, but it's like your 20 minutes and like, okay, this is the time I'm like focusing on my word that reminds me of God. And one day I'm like, my brain's off in every single direction that's possible to go in besides here. And then I don't know, at the end, God's like, I'm waiting, like I've been here the entire time. Like, all right, and like where else is God but here the entire time? But if you're just kind of like then you're just and yeah, and doing everything else, but like being with that.
Exactly. That's why the
With that's in the
ritual is so
silence.
important.
Yeah,
That's
like
where,
draw you into that space, right?
And so one of the things I also love in Jewish tradition that I know other traditions have as well is that you have regular times of prayer. Like you say the Shema at least 3 times a day, and that's the reminding you that we're one. Hey, listen up. That's what it says. Listen up, listen up. We are one. We are connected. And you're supposed to remind yourself that and say it, all the time, all the time. Remember, remember, remember. And so I think that's a really powerful practice because you do just get into the unless you say, okay, before I like take a drink of this, I'm going to pause and acknowledge that this is a precious experience. I'm bringing something like water, which is water is life,
Like
right?
fundamental.
I'm bringing that into my body. It's now becoming a part of me. It's nourishing me. It's allowing my life to continue. But also you just take a drink of water and you move on. Like, but if you can pause and like see, that like holy spark in the moment and you just like say a little blessing, right? Just a little blessing. And then you drink, it's that it elevates the experience and it reminds you, it keeps you from just blah, 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 like it like breaks it up and then you fall back and it breaks it up. And and it's not that you're not going to fall back in. That's not the point. Is of course we live in a 3D world. We have to live in this world. It's how fast you get back when you get thrown off.
Yeah.
That's also what the practices teach us is how fast can we come back to center. The world is gonna throw us off. You're a top Buddha, something can still throw you off. You're gonna get back real quick, really quickly. But if you don't have the practice, it's really hard to reel yourself in. Your thoughts just keep going. How do you squash those ants, those automatic negative thoughts? Like, don't let them take you into a spiral. You remember, oh yeah, and come back. And I think that's what a lot of these traditions and practices allow us to do.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And I see that in my own life, right? How you have to remember all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, because we get distracted.
I
Yeah.
totally I totally relate to what you're saying too, and of just, framing it as what you're focusing on or what I'm focusing on. And, you are going to experience what you focus on. So, when you
Yeah.
place focus on something that's ultimately positive for yourself, it's going to be ultimately positive for yourself, right? Like you're saying, like with these practices of, practicing, being aware and focusing on things that are based in positivity and that are based in benefiting you. That's ultimately what you're going to experience when you're focusing on those things. And yeah, I really totally relate to what you're saying too, as far as these types of spiritual practices. Really, they are about like when you get um the test or the challenges that life is going to ultimately give you, uh to be able to then refocus on what it is that you're here for.
Yeah. We all fall into that. We all get distracted, we make mistakes, and like sometimes we really do mess things up and we have to like recover, and we have to, or there really is something that goes wrong and there's like real pain. And it's okay, but how much am I going to beat myself up and cause myself suffering? How much am I going to make this worse? And like how fast can I like, okay, bring it back in. What can I learn from this? How can I fix it? What can I learn? How can we, move past this, learn from it, whatever it is, and not just spiral, make it worse, beat myself up. Because like how no one is as mean to me as I can be to myself. What's horrible, like I'm in my head all the time. If I'm not kind to myself, like that's abuse. And it doesn't matter where those voices came from originally. If I'm keeping it going in my own head, I'm creating suffering. And so it's like, whoa, hey, hold on a second. I don't need to do that. That's not helpful. It's not moving me forward, but it's like recognizing it. That's sometimes the challenge.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So how do you recognize it?
That's what these practices are all about. That's why you train. That's the point of meditation, so that
Totally.
you notice when you're not there. You know what calm feels like. You know what peace, what center, what joy, what that inner core alignment can feel like. Oh,
uh, uh, it's always the orange cats. Is
he's
that an orange
very
cat? It looks
excited
like an
to be a
orange cat.
part of this. His name
That's
is
funny.
Hot Dog. My
Oh, you
kid's
Hot
named the cat
dog.
Hot
Hot
Dog.
Dog, a cat
Oh
named
my God,
Dog. I know.
cute.
It's great. He has a lot to teach us.
It's funny.
uh,
Don't tell hot dog he's not a dog.
he's unfazed. He's not concerned. He's just
Yeah,
living his best life.
seriously. Categories mean nothing to me.
Which is again why we learn from animals and
hmm
why we learn from plants, because my cat never guilts himself. If he knocks something over, he owns it, moves on. He's like, yeah, I did that. I'd be like, oh no, how could I do that? Why would I have done that? What was I
hmm
thinking? My
Like you
cat never
stained the
does that.
couch,
Yeah.
the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I've been reading this book. It's called Finding Your Way in a Wild New World. And it touches upon what we're talking about, where in the book, the author says that animals, they live in a state of wordlessness. And so a lot of the book is teaching you how to drop into wordlessness. And a lot of what we suffer are the words in our head, is really the codes for how we treat ourselves. Like you were saying, if you're treating yourself with negativity, it's coded in the language itself. And so um I find that certain practices that get you out of that state of consciousness where it's just thought based in words, and to just drop into feeling of the rest of the body simultaneously, while knowing like, yeah, well, those thoughts are still going on itself, but I don't have to just solely focus on the word based thinking, but I could also focus on the rest of my body as well. And so I noticed that with those practices, it really does help you get out of just sort of the mental churning of, all that can be going on mentally at the time. Yeah.
Definitely.
And as far as like that question of like how much am I going to beat myself up? I don't even want to ask that question. I think a lot of the spiritual practices are about, evolving out of that so you don't even beat yourself up anymore. So like, yeah,
Right.
mistakes are going
Right.
to happen. You're going to make
It's like,
mistakes, but like we don't have to beat ourselves up
nope,
over it.
that's exactly right. I love what you were saying. First of all, I completely agree. Second of all, I wanted to get back what you were talking about dropping into your body and wordlessness. I think that there's a lot of room for physical practice that does that. And I think that's part of the power of the breath work that you do, Melissa, and like
Mm-hmm.
the floor chi that we were doing, as at the center, and a lot of those other physical practices allow you to get into the feeling of your body. Like there's like tapping and, all of these techniques for getting physically in your body. And I think that that often can really, it really helps me, and to get out of that wordy, cerebral, intellectual, like figuring things out, and just into the body. So I think that's where those practices are so helpful. Yoga, taking a walk, giving yourself a massage, right? Like all of these things where you're just physically getting into your body.
Yeah, I agree. I think so much of what we prize is thinking and figuring things out, and like a lot of our jobs require us to
Mhm.
be up here all the time, where right, we're just like any other animal. We're moving all the time, and without that movement, right, we have to be intentional in how we practice.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and how to balance all of that out too, because I mean, let's face it, uh, just being a human being, sometimes we do have to show up and be, using that
Hmm.
mental capacity, but
Oh
how to
yeah.
set up the day so that, we could ultimately balance those things out. And yeah, like you said, like doing the breath work or the floor chi. I love doing both of those things. And actually, I've been also juggling, just, doing that just to like get out of the just the mental dominance and, do something that's actually physically active, that is playing and just
Hmm.
for the sake of playing and really, really letting my inner child just shine and come out.
I love that so much. I think that's amazing. And I think that exactly what you're saying, if you set up your time so you give yourself that physical grounding practice, then you maximize your brain space.
Mm,
You're not wasting, you have a certain amount of mental energy, mental fatigue, decision fatigue. It's real. You build up neurochemicals over time every time you're using your brain. And so you want to optimize that time. You're not wasting it on spiraling on yourself. You're not wasting it on those negative spaces. You're fully utilizing it to move you forward, to take you into that future space that you want, that you desire, to see the good in the now, that you can be present because you're not using all your mental energy on, the past. Not to ignore your past, but like have learn from it, and then to be able to be present and then to look forward.
mm,
Balance is so key.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. What do you like to do for fun, Aliza?
So many things. I love traveling. I love meeting people. I love doing events in community. I love community service projects. I get involved in a lot of activities. When I lived in Eugene, I ran an organization called Eugene Volunteers, which is a family volunteering organization, and we'd go out and do community service events on the weekends with families in the community. And I love to do things around food because I think it's so universal. Everyone feels good about it. There's something so fundamentally bonding about feeding each other, about eating
Mm,
together, like the whole concept of breaking bread together. It's very bonding, and like all cultures, very universal, right? And so I love doing service around food, especially. And so that's really fun. I love kayaking. I love horseback riding. I love to learn. I'm always trying to find opportunities to learn with wonderful people and reading and watching podcasts such as this amazing podcast, which I totally love.
Well,
I
thank
learned
you.
so much from you guys. So feeding my curiosity.
Do you like to cook?
I do. I love it.
What's your
I
favorite
think,
thing to cook?
oh my goodness. I
One of
think
them. You don't have to give it a hierarchy.
I just made paella yesterday, which
Ooh,
was
did you?
really
Ooh,
yummy.
nice.
Yes, with bone broth.
Yum.
I love to make
Mm.
things with really fresh ingredients and very nutritious, but very flavorful. But probably like close to my heart is always making French toast because my grandpa taught me how to make challah when I was like 2 and
Oh,
how to make
really?
French toast. And so French toast to me just feels like family and love and tradition and deliciousness.
Mm.
Sounds
Yeah, I've been
amazing.
looking forward to. I make French toast on Christmas. So I make like a batch for, we usually stay at my mom, so I make a batch for us to have, and then I give one to my brother. I guess like the one time a year that I eat French toast. I've
Once
Gotta
a
been
treat
year?
thinking
yourself.
about it.
Oh
Yeah,
my
just once a
gosh.
year.
See, you get a challah on Friday for Shabbat, and then on
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, use the leftover challah for French toast.
So you make your own challah too,
I'm
or
not
you
currently,
know
but I
how,
have.
but okay.
Yeah, there are some local bakeries that are pretty amazing. So, and I have some friends that make challah regularly that's so delicious. So I'm really lucky when I
Mm.
get to benefit from that. So I don't always make challah, but I love making it. I love making it with kids. I think cooking with kids is amazing. Um,
Certainly requires a lot of patience.
everything with kids does.
Mm-hmm.
So I helped to build this online learning community, peer-led, student-to-student learning with the belief that everyone has something to offer. Everyone has something to teach, to share. You can share your own language. You can share your own culture. And so we got classrooms of kids around the world. We had over 1,000 kids involved. And they would share, they would teach each other. So they would say, one of the really fun things the kids were super into would be making food of different places.
Mm.
So, you know, one of them would give the recipe and the class would make the food and they would show them eating it and trying it for the first time, and so these cultural exchanges, and it was like very early in the like video chat sphere. It was before Zoom, before all of these wonderful technologies, and we created this culture sharing between kids, and a lot of it was around food, and they just loved it. And part of it was because they weren't just receiving. In school, so much of it's like receiving and regurgitating. And this was like really sharing what was important to them. So that was really fun.
That sounds it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I've
That
gotten
is
to work on some
amazing.
cool projects.
Yeah, I would say just from what you've been telling us so far, I mean, it all sounds just truly incredible. It's just an incredible, things you're doing in this world. I totally
Thank
vibe up with
you.
it. I do actually have a question for you. What would you say is how we can elevate human consciousness? What are some things we can do?
We can listen to each other. I think if we created more safe spaces to listen to each other, I think that would go a long way. I think people don't feel heard. I think they don't feel valued. I don't think they feel held by their community. And I think it leads to a lot of lashing out in really violent, negative, toxic ways because people don't feel heard or understood. And the more we can create spaces where we can hold that sacred space for each other, I think we can do the deep healing work that we need to do. Hurt people hurt people. And if we don't have a way to process and heal that, we're going to perpetuate the cycle of just hurting each other and hurting each other and hurting each other.
It's so interesting, right? That we just really need the
It's so
basics,
basic.
right? Like elevating consciousness isn't about like doing something, with bells and whistles and unheard of and unimaginable. It's really just about like being so human and being so fundamental.
And it's not out of reach for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can do this. It is accessible to all of us. It's about creating that kind space for yourself, about finding people who are safe to co-regulate with, finding people that you can open up to and share with and heal with. And I think that there are so many beautiful healing practices, but until you feel safe, they can't benefit you. So really safety is that core value for me.
Yeah, I agree. That's super important.
And I'm just looking to create those spaces as much as I can because I benefit so much from it. And it's so wonderful to see other people growing in that.
Yeah, I think that's important for me too in the work that I do, right? Like
Mm,
just knowing that right, I bring that with me, that you could bring what you want and it's okay. Like I'm
mm.
here for it all.
Right. There are a million ways to create that space. There are a million ways. Is it like the moms at pickup where you like make that safe to share what's going on? Is it like in the workplace? Is it in your home? Like, where are these interactions that you can bring that intention of
Mm,
safe space?
yeah, yeah. I think that's important to remember too, right? Like that our work, the same thing, like that our spiritual practice isn't just this over here. It's like at the essence of like how we do our life in the every
Exactly.
moment, not in the like this is my spiritual practice when I'm away and when it's peaceful and perfect and my meditation only happens like on the cushion in like the beautiful room that's set up. Like no, it's the everyday where we get to do the work of helping humanity.
Mhm. Yeah, and just how you
Yeah.
live. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really enjoy what you're saying about just being open and receptive and listening and showing up in kindness.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I agree.
I love what you were saying about um, that it's not separate. That your spiritual life and your regular life, there's no your life is spiritual.
Yeah.
It's how do you allow those training practices to show up? It's that integration, right? Because it's not when you're sitting on the cushion in the beautiful, peaceful space that you practice it. That's training, but there's no conflict that you have to rise to see if you've got it. Like
Hmm.
you go into the world and life comes at you and you say, okay, did I learn anything in meditation? Can I apply it? Can I use it? You
Yeah,
know?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And ultimately, too, from what I've been learning of recently is how to not be in conflict with the conflict itself.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
Well, I mean, you know, we live in a species that is just battling itself and is in conflict with itself. And so, really, all of these practices, I think, that are ultimately designed like sanctuary consciousness
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, meditations and all of these different practices that can just meld together. Really, what I think it boils down to is not being at conflict with the conflict going on itself, so that when you come
Mm,
into somebody who's in conflict, you don't have to be in conflict with them.
I love that.
So you can just allow them to have their safe space. They could be in their conflict,
Mm.
and you can go and you can do your own thing that doesn't have to be in conflict.
Yeah, you don't have to fall into other people's drama. Again, it's about having the space to recognize
Mm,
you don't have to fall into whatever they're doing. You can see it and you can make a different choice. Absolutely. That's big. Great stuff, guys. This was
yeah.
fun.
This has
You
been
guys are
Went
great.
great.
deep.
Yeah, I agree. And I think with that, we could probably end here. It's been such a wonderful conversation and afternoon and time. Like I stated at the beginning, Aliza, you just bring so much love and joy, and you radiate just this like, I don't know, just this beautiful openness.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for
passionate.
being you. Yeah.
I
Thank you,
definitely get
guys.
that vibe from you. You're very passionate, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all of those things that you're passionate about with us. It was truly a blessing to have you on. And just, great conversation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Aliza, do you have a website or anything, or social media or anything, any way you advertise yourself on social media that you'd like to share?
I'm Aliza Explores on Instagram, and I have Mother Aliza Joy on both Instagram and Facebook that I share some things that wisdom that comes to me that I feel is meaningful that I like to share with others. I just love to, if something resonates with me, I love to share it. And I am going to be working on some other platforms where I'd love to share more of my teaching and coaching. So stay tuned. I'll keep you posted.
Oh,
All
that'd be
right.
great. And we could tag you and link you in the description.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to give a very special thank you to Aliza for being here today, for, being you, for being a friend. And thank you to everyone who listened or watched. Um, we would love if you like this episode and leave a comment for us to let us know what did you take away from today, because I know I learned so much. And yeah, oh, you could subscribe too. That would be amazing.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
everything
thank
that you're
you.
doing. I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited.
Thank you so much. All right, so bye everybody.
Goodbye.